Commerce Department has announced a delay in their preliminary ruling on the anti-dumping of solar panels from four southeastern Asian nations. California is expected this week to announce a ban on all gasoline-powered vehicles as of 2035 within that state. And for the first half of 2022, more than 25% of all of the electricity used in the nation was generated from renewable energy. I'm Jay Warmke with Blue Rock Station, and this is the news from the solar industry for the week of August 29th. So getting started, first, Solar, which is the largest manufacturer of solar panels in the United States, has announced that they will be building a fourth manufacturing facility. This facility will be located somewhere in the southeastern United States. They currently have two operating solar manufacturing facilities, both located in northwestern Ohio. One is in the town of Perrysburg. The other is in Lake Township, Ohio. They're building a third manufacturing facility up in Lake Township within Ohio, and then this will represent the fourth. They're announcing that this will add, all of this construction will add about 850 new jobs to their workforce, which will amount to about 3,000 by the time this project is finished. They do have facilities located currently in addition to Ohio, in Vietnam and Malaysia. And speaking of those Southeast Asian countries, the Commerce Department has announced that they are delaying a preliminary ruling on the anti-dumping of solar panels in the United States. Now, as some background on this, of course, during the Trump administration, they imposed a 25% tariff on panels that were manufactured in China. So much of the manufacturing moved from China to Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, and Cambodia. Well, these four countries represent now about 80% of all of the solar panels used within the United States. Well, a company known as Axiom Solar filed a complaint with the Commerce Department saying, listen, this was just simply a move to avoid paying the tariffs. These are Chinese panels. They're just simply assembled in these four countries. Well, the Biden administration began an investigation, and if found that this is indeed the case, which of course most people in the industry assume it is true, they could face penalties as much as 250% of the cost of the solar panels. Well, when this investigation began, companies that were importing solar panels from those nations decided it was too great a risk to perhaps have to pay 2.5 times the cost in penalties. So the flow of solar panels just dried up almost immediately. There were dire warnings on the impact to the solar industry that this would have. So the Biden administration enacted an executive order that said for the next 2 years, we will not impose any penalties, and these will not be imposed retroactively, even if the Commerce Department finds that these are indeed anti-dumping violations. Well, that freed up the supply chain quite a bit. Well, Axiom Solar then petitioned the court saying, tell you what, don't release the preliminary announcement yet. So it's been delayed until November of this year, which will push the final ruling to April or perhaps even June of 2023. California is expected this week to announce that it will be banning all gasoline-powered cars as of 2035. There's a phase-in process for this to take place. This is going to send shockwaves throughout the industry. Currently, there are about 560,000 electric vehicles in the state of California, but there are 14.2 million cars registered within the state. So to transition from gasoline to fully electric will require many magnitudes more of electric vehicles. California currently represents about 43% of all the electric vehicles sold in the United States. The new vehicles under this law must get at least 150 miles to a single charge, and maintain about 80% of that charging capacity after 10 years. Now, the grid in California is already strained, but they're anticipating it will need to grow by at least 68% by 2045 to handle the increased demand for electricity, largely in part because of the addition of electric vehicles. Now, a new report was just announced that shows that in the United States, renewable energy accounted for over 25% of all of the generating capacity from the grid in the first half of 2022. Wind grew by about 25%, now representing about 11.5% of all of the energy mix on the grid. Solar grew by 28% year on year from 2021 to 2022, now representing about 5%. Hydro and some biofuels represent the balance of that 25% mix. Some of the traditional fossil fuels include coal. Coal fell by about 6%, now represents about 20% of the energy mix on the grid. Nuclear fell by 1%, so it's now 18%. And natural gas actually rose by 5% and represents 36% of the electrical mix on the grid. Well, that's the news from solar for this week. We'll see you next week.